Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Paul from Guitar Gear Connection. I'm sure by now you've all heard the fantastic news that Sir Paul McCartney finally got back his long-lost Hofner bass. But could this recent discovery finally tell us what happened to some of the other long-lost Beatle guitars? Stay tuned and let's try to figure this out. So let's start off with a story that most of us are familiar with. It was a dark, cold, dreary night on December 2nd, 1965. The Beatles were on their way to start their UK tour in Glasgow the next day. Their chauffeur, Alf Bicknell, was in charge of strapping two guitars to the back of their car, a Gretsch and a Rickenbacker. During the ride, a lorry flashed them down to say that a banjo had fallen off the back. Their personal assistant, Neil Aspinall, along with Alf, headed back for the guitar. While searching the road, they discovered George's beloved Gretsch Country Gentleman with the dual flip-up mutes had been ran over by a bunch of different cars and trucks, leaving the guitar in thousands of little pieces. Neil and Alf collected a few parts of the destroyed guitar before driving off again, one of those parts being a tuning key. George recalls the story a little bit differently. He says that there was 14 guitars strapped to the top of his car. One came off while they were driving, and a truck driver flagged them down to hand George his beloved Gretsch in a dangling mess. He doesn't specify which Gretsch it was, and at night also might have been tough for him to tell by just staring at that dangling mess. During this time, George was only touring with his Tennessean and 360 12-string as his two primary instruments, and he used his dual flip-up mute Country Gentleman as his backup. Now we get to the big part of why I'm making this whole video. Just a few days after the accident, Paul's Hofner Cavern bass was in need of a replacement tuning key. Beatles roadie Mal Evans in his book says that he used a tuning key from the destroyed Gretsch Country Gentleman for Paul's bass. The silver shiny metal key is evident in tons of pictures in the Beatles' career and was on the bass the day it got stolen. The problem? That's not a gold Gretsch Country Gentleman tuning key. That's a silver Gretsch Tennessean tuning key. Two completely different shapes and designs. With the newer, clearer pictures of Paul's newfound Cavern bass, we can now more than ever confirm what tuning key Mal really used. Now fast forward a few years later when George is playing his Lucy Les Paul. After analyzing some photos, it appears George used a silver Gretsch selector switch knob for a brief period. Thank you 5-0 Guitars for bringing this find to light. Was this a leftover part from the destroyed Tennessean? I believe both Country Gentleman and the Tennessean fell off the back of the car that night. Both would have had identical looking cases and the same interior and exterior. They probably looked at the carnage on the highway and noticed more Country Gentleman parts and reached down and picked up the Tennessean tuning key. And no matter who tells the story, one fact remains the same. A lot of big trucks ran this thing over. Both are dark colored instruments, and again at night, anything is possible. Plus, Neil and Alf were in no way guitar savvy. For them to know which Gretsch parts they were staring at night would have been virtually impossible. Regardless, both the flip mute gent and the Tennessean that George brought with him to every show are now never seen again after that night. Could human factor play into this? Alf admits John made him nervous. Maybe the whole bit of John saying you'll keep your job if you find the guitar scared the hell out of them. Put yourself in his shoes. Would you have the courage to tell George Harrison two of his most iconic guitars have been destroyed because of something you did? Also, Mal was technically the one in charge of their gear. Knowing he lost John's J160E just a few years prior, Do you think he wanted them to know that he just lost 2 more of their guitars? Whether it was 1 or 2 guitars that got destroyed that fateful night, with the new pictures coming to light of Paul's Cavern bass, my money is going with the Tennessean being the one destroyed. Alright everybody, comment below and tell me what you think. Was it the Gent that was smashed, the Tennessean that was smashed, or was it both? Thanks for watching as always, and I'll catch you on the next one.